taking on a really great topic. How do you take on a new challenge with confidence? I'm with my co-hosts, Welshie and Debbie. My name is David. I'm from the New School, as we all are. And we're going to look at this and try and splice it up and make it helpful and practical for you. So, kicking off, Welsh, what's your perspective on this fascinating subject?
Yeah, well, I love new challenges and keeping it fresh and keeping kind of life going with learning something new. Um, but often the big challenge is finding the time, finding the money, and finding the energy to kind of pursue something because you know the saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I've just kind of reached a birthday and I'm getting a bit older, so I often think when I take on something new, will I be able to learn it? You know, as kind of an advanced student. Um, and it's really, for me, what it goes down to is really identifying that why. Why do you want to pursue this? And can I tap into that? So I'll kick this off with really uh, learning about your why for doing that.
Hmm. So,
Yeah, I love that, Rosie.
so it's the why is, why is this important? Why is it important to me or my friends and my family? And something about meaning, I think.
Mm. Because people undertake something new, a new challenge, either because for one of two reasons or one or two
Mhm.
buckets, right? It's either they're in tremendous pain, discomfort, or they're kind of attracted to something, an expectation or a vision or a goal of something amazing, right? That gives them so much energy and fulfillment. So it's kind of tapping into one, like personally, I think when I look back at the new challenges I've taken on board, 9 times out of 10, it's when I'm attracted to something that really energizes me and fulfills me. That's what kind of gets me into the new challenge, right?
Mm.
Lessen the pain.
Mm.
How about you guys?
Yeah, same for me, Welshie. I think it's often been something exciting and shiny that gets me fired up and ready to do something a little bit out of my comfort zone. It usually feels, especially at the beginning, like it is something on the path in front of me in the direction that I know that I want to go. My challenge is not being enthusiastic and finding the confidence to do the new thing. My issue has been the sticking power to see it through because I'm one of life's enthusiasts. I'm optimistic by nature, I would say, on the whole. And so I like to throw myself into new situations. I like to meet new people. I like to have new experiences. And sometimes I will commit myself to more than I can actually sensibly take on. And so some of my learning, some of my growth has been about just trying to manage that sensibly and build in some of the resilience and self-care stuff that helps me actually see things through, not just start new things and then bail out halfway through. Not that I'm a quitter, but just that I tend to hit this point where I'm exhausted, and it's because I haven't really put in good habits from the start. So I'm learning a lot about that in my life.
When does that tend to kick in with that kind of sticking power? You need to kind of dig into that.
It kicks in. So I mean, I am usually, I love novelty. So I love new shiny ideas, shiny courses. I love learning. I'm just one of those people who enjoys being slightly on the edge of my comfort zone. I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's not that bit. It's not the kind of the newness and the getting to know new language or new terminology or anything like that. It tends to come in a little bit later on, like halfway through a course or something like
Mm.
that, where I realize I've still got quite a long way to go and I've got the majority of it under my belt and I'm ready to move on. And it's that bit where I really have to dig in and just go, okay, we need to see it through. We need to do the kind of more robust learning, the stuff that is going to give you depth and not just superficial knowledge. So that bit for me is the challenge. To go into things very gung ho, full of confidence, full of enthusiasm, and then kind of go, oh, I'm exhausted halfway through, and then have to dig deep to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
David, what about you?
Well, I've been reflecting on this while we're having this conversation. And I think back to, wow, 6 years ago, I started training as a psychotherapist and coach. And, people said to me, are you crazy? You're in your late 40s. What are you doing? You know? And I realized that, in the words of Henry David Thoreau, I had to throw away the good opinion of other people. I had to, for me, it was an intrinsic thing, which was, no, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. This is all encompassing. This is so important to me. And it wasn't a week or two or a month or 3 months. I've been thinking about that for the better part of 12 years, maybe longer, maybe 22 years. And so, we talked, you guys hinted towards intrinsic versus extrinsic. When you do something because, as Welshie said, there's a big stick and you've got to go and do it. But the research shows it doesn't last. It doesn't have longevity, and the quality of what you do is done because of the wrong reasons. Whereas if it's intrinsic, if it's back to the why, if it's back to, this is what I'm here for. This is why I'm here on the planet. I know that sounds grandiose, but that's why I'm here. Then you can say, this is so important. I'll do whatever it takes to get it done.
And that relates to what David was saying about the sticking power, right? During those really low or challenging times in the course or in that kind of program, you kind of reconnect with your why, and that's the motivation that pulls you through.
Can I give you a really nice example of the extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation? I probably have shared this story with you before, but some years ago, it must be about maybe not that long, 6-7 years ago, I decided it was going to be a good idea to go and take my CBT, my initial motorbike training, because my sister has been a keen biker, my husband was a keen biker, and I really wanted to go join their gang. I wanted to be part of the Sunday afternoon crowd who takes their motorbikes up to the beach. I live in Norfolk, so beaches are a big thing here. And so I went and signed up to do this CBT thing. And halfway through the day, I quit. Now, I'm not naturally somebody who quits things very easily, but I literally burst into tears. And I said to the instructor, I'm done. I'm just not going to be able to do it. And he said to me, did you really want to do this for yourself, or did you want to do it for someone else? And I was like, yeah, I probably just wanted to do it really to be part of that thing and to be able to, to join in with my family and stuff. I wasn't really doing it for me. I was doing it for them. And so I didn't have the sticking power to see it through because it wasn't coming from intrinsic motivation. It wasn't something that deep down I really wanted to do. And what I learned about that was that I didn't have that kind of deep inner grit that I was going to need to get through the difficulty of learning something new. So I quit and I gave up, and I don't make a habit of doing that, but it was such an important lesson for me about if I don't feel really connected to that thing, then when you get to the tough times, which inevitably there are tough times when you're hitting your growth zone or you're stretching yourself into something new, if you don't really care about it either way, don't do it. If you really do care about it and you feel like you're going to be able to find those resources and do the digging deep bit, then, if you really want to do it and you've got a strong enough why, then it's worth doing, because it's inevitable that there are tough times with anything new.
Yeah, that's a great example. Wow.
Well, you just hinted you sort of hinted on the resources. Now, what are those different types of resources, Welshie and Debbie? Those resources you can lean into or you can lean on that will help you, that will support you through the times when you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to exit left here at this stage.
Yeah.
I'm going to,
Mhm.
where's the off ramp? I've had enough.
What a brilliant question. I would say they're ingredients that enable you to kind of make a success of that program. So the key ingredients for me is, well, we already talked about the why, kind of understanding your why. A second
Mm-hmm.
ingredient would be community and connection with other people in the program. That
Mm-hmm.
is big time. They serve as kind of like your accountability partners as well,
Mm-hmm.
and they you can kind of bounce ideas and challenges and thoughts off of them. And like I have this running group, and we are connected on WhatsApp. So we do the Bushy Park run every Saturday at 9 o'clock. But most Saturdays, I try to find excuses for me not to run. Right? I don't. I enjoy after the run, but right before, I think it's the half an hour before when I need to get out of bed and head to the park. It's like I just don't want to do it. But knowing that there are about 20 people in that WhatsApp group, if I say, yeah, I'm running, I'm there. I'm
Mm-hmm.
there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Like
the
that.
third,
That's a
yeah,
great
sorry.
resource. Yeah.
And the third ingredient would be kind of it's making sure that you or that I schedule time in to my calendar where it's like there's nothing that could interfere with that allocation of time. Nothing that takes priority during that block over me doing that activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think time management is really important. And, often when I'm signing up for something new, there is this kind of balancing act for me between wanting to do the new thing, still having to do the old thing, all of the other stuff that takes up my time, and the needs of my family and the needs for myself and my own recuperation as well. So for me, it's always, I'm sure, like it's true for all of us, it's a bit of a balancing act, that kind of like, how do I get some kind of harmony in these different areas? And for me, it's like, it's been really important to not compromise in any of those areas. So, yes, okay, some things have to give and there has to be some flexibility, but I'm not going to put my own learning on the back burner in order to do other stuff. I'm not going to sacrifice my family in order to learn something new. All of those things are equally important. So for me, managing my time, but also more importantly, managing my energy becomes more important. So I'm not superhuman. I'm definitely not superwoman. I really wish that I could do things faster than I can. And certainly some of the resources that we have around AI and things like that can be very helpful for us to get the most productivity out of our time. But ultimately, I am still a human being and I still have to make some kind of adjustments to it. So I think whenever I've gone into anything new, that ability to just go, okay, where am I now? What needs to flex? How do I adjust? How do I keep calibrating so that I've got this balance as well as it can be into some kind of like harmony in my life? And I will be entirely frank, I get it wrong all the time. And I'm forever over one side or the other. But in my defense, at least I have the awareness to know when I've gone too far and to be able to row back and go, okay, right, I need to readjust and rebalance again. So I think I've got better at doing that and building the resilience in the background to be able to do that more easily.
You just described quite eloquently Kolb's reflective model of learning.
Mm.
It's something we teach on the course, obviously, but this idea of what was the concrete experience? What did I go through? What was I experiencing? What was going on in my body? What was I thinking? What were my sensations? What are my feelings? Ooh, I use the F word. Can I reflect on that? Can I look at that? Can I step outside myself and say, what was going on with me? What is going on with me? What is the aftermath? And then there's that kind of creative part, the abstract part, which is, how do I do it differently? Where did I learn? What did I not learn? Who can I do it with? Where are my resources? Can I try an experiment? Debbie and I used to work at the same consultancy. That word was used often, that startup. It's an experiment. It's not a reflection on you. We're trying stuff out. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great. What did I learn? Now it's time to go and implement it. Try it out. And then we go back to the concrete experience and all over again, that cycle. It's really helpful to know that, because then you know, oh, wait a minute, I'm not the only one going through this. Other people have experienced this, and I can grow and learn. So I really like that. I was just thinking about something which might seem a little bit left field, but I'm going to describe it anyway, okay? I think there's something also about, I love what you said, Debbie, about harmony, but I also feel there's something about, it's like an affirmation. And I don't mean a kind of think it, I'll manifest it. That's not where I'm going. When I say affirmation, I mean, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it, I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to make it happen. Not at the risk of my health, my family, and my relationships and all that, but I'm going to commit to this. And that also means dropping an illusion, if you like. And what I mean by that is, oh, this didn't work out. It's too hard. So much studying. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe, what's the phrase? Saturn's in retrograde. I know I'm going to offend a lot of people, but I'll take that risk. And because Saturn's in retrograde, I can't do this right now. I'm not so sure. We can take a view and say, no, I'm going to do this. Because this is where I want to go. This is the direction I'm going. This is the kind of life I want to lead. And I want to give you a story which makes me kind of slightly embarrassed to see an Indian man blush, but at the same time, I'm going to tell it anyway. So I used to be a managing director of a creative agency, and we were doing this big old event for South African tourism. Well, she might have even attended. It was in Hanover Square, and it was a big old event. And we had, some of the biggest brands invested in this. We even had some of the biggest fashion brands. We're doing a runway, red carpet, all that kind of stuff, right? And it's a big night. The media was there, the press was there. The chief exec of South African tourism said to me, David, and she's like this strong, powerful, beautiful woman. She just said, David, we've got litter on our red carpet and cigarette butts. I said, don't worry, I'll call a runner and they'll go and get it sorted. She just looked at me, and she's got this beautiful dress and she's got her high heels on, and she said, no. She got on her knees. She started picking up the cigarette butts. What was I going to do? I got on my knees. I started picking up cigarette butts. She said, we don't have time for runners. This is our project. Taught me a valuable lesson, which is drop the illusion. You're not that important. You can do this. You can do whatever it takes. If it means getting on your knees and picking up cigarette butts, even though that the media are there, we do that. If it means sometimes we've got to stay up late at night to study and we really don't feel like, we can do that. We've had students who've taken up 2-3 part-time jobs to get through this. They can do this. In fact, I totally respect them as well, because that's hard, And that's why I say drop the illusion and ask yourself, well, maybe I can do more than I think. Maybe I'm more capable than what other people say I'm capable of. It's kind of like rewriting the story and saying, yeah, that was your story. That's what you said about me. But I don't have to buy that story. I love stories, by the way. Do you know what I
I
mean?
think there's two pieces to that, David. I think
Mm,
there's an external piece where if you during your childhood or maybe through school you were told persistently that you couldn't do something or you interpreted that you couldn't do something, then it's really difficult to overcome that narrative, that kind of something that is just kicking off in the background that says you're not ready to do this, you can't do this, you're not clever enough. So there's that part of it, that kind of like external voice. But then for a lot of people as well, I think they have this kind of internal voice that says, I don't think I can do it. I don't trust that I am able to learn enough. I think I'm too slow. I think that I'm not educated enough. And it's kind of like, it's almost like the challenge is operating on those two different levels. There's this
mm,
external voice and an internal voice. And I think what you have to do, and I really like what you were saying about that degree of commitment. So I think what you have to do is you have to be prepared to say, I will commit. And even though there will be difficult times, and even though there will be points where I want to quit and I want to bail out and I think I've made a terrible mistake, I will commit to my future self that we're going to get through this. And I
mm,
think, when you've got that kind of ability to, for it to come from somewhere deeper, I'm sitting here with my hand on my stomach going, it feels like it's like guts for me. It's like I have that conviction that I can make this happen. I think if you can tap into that grit, that gut feel and go, I will see it through. Yes, it will be hard. And yes, I can do it. I think that's where we get people who are really just driving through, even though it might cost them a bit on the journey.
mm,
The word that comes up for me is when you describe that, Debbie, so well, is a covenant. It's a sacred kind of commitment and agreement where you're really protecting that that part of you that deserves to undertake that learning and that program or whatever it is you want to do, and that nothing really is going to stand in the way, and no influences externally telling you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have enough money, when are you going to do this, and all these kind of doubts and negativity. It's like saying, no, this is, I deserve this, I am valuable, right?
mm,
And I'm committed to myself. Yeah.
mm.
Mm.
I love that. I think that wraps it up so well. It's you know I am valuable and
Mhm.
I am
Mhm.
committed to myself. We need more of that. You know.
The other thing that comes up for me is imposter syndrome, right? So I'll give you a story of uh, getting my MBA. So this was, it had been my dream to one day get my MBA, but I was never really, you know, academically, yeah, at the top of my class, and I didn't perform well in tests. And so whenever I would take the entrance exams for any graduate programs, it was the GMAT for the MBA. I would fail miserably. And I'm like, if I can't even pass the GMAT, how on earth am I going to even do the course?
Mm.
There are people far smarter than me. And you know what? I kind of just had to bite the bullet and just, I mean, I put in the time, and I wasn't going to score, an 800 or yeah, I think that was the highest score. I just had to do the bare minimum to get by. So I studied hours and hours, days upon days, weeks upon weeks, just to be able to pass. I took it many times, I'll be honest with you,
Mm.
but I passed it. I passed it by 1 point, right? I
Mm.
just,
Mm.
it was just good enough. But you know what? Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
Like you don't relate to imposter syndrome. You don't have to be the expert. You don't have to be. You just have to be. as my mom would always say, just 1 centimeter, better than what's the bare minimum is needed. That's all.
Mm,
You don't have to be the best, but just a little bit better, and you could do it.
mm, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely no one size fits all approach to doing this stuff, is there? And I think it's really interesting and important that people bring all of themselves, that kind of degree of authenticity, especially in the work that we do. I mean, we're all coaches or therapists. And if there was only one way of doing it, wouldn't life be so boring? We wouldn't be
Mm,
able to match up and build the relationships with the people that we help in the way that we need to. I'm a really big believer that, we all search for different things. We all need help from different types of people. Even the help that we need changes over time. So we want to have that range of people with all of the different skills and experiences and personal qualities that mean that they bring their full authenticity to the table, because that's what humankind needs. That's what society needs. It needs all of us to play our part. And I
mm,
feel really strongly that there is no one way of doing things. That's why we take this integrative approach, where it's not just one method rammed down your throat that says this is the way that you must do it. It's about how do we meet the human beings in front of us with what they need and flex and adapt ourselves in order to be able to meet that need as best we can. And that degree of authenticity, I think, is just so important.
mm. And I think, something that there's two things that I'd like to say around this is one is that if you've had this flame, this little fire,
Mm,
protect it, look after it,
mm,
because there's a reason why it's there. And so if you look after it, and it'll grow, and it's really valuable, and it's like it's an internal thing going on with you, which is, you know, you could call it the gut microbiome, you could call it your heart, you could call it what you will, but there's something that
mm,
that is alive and beating and saying this is important. I also want to say that, there's something about momentum. Once you start, you gain momentum, and you gain speed, and you gain velocity, and you gain strength. And also there's people around you, whether it's the tutors and the lecturers at the new school. More importantly, it's about your community that you you develop and grow with, your on your course, and you'll be surprised. I'm always surprised at how close people become and how much they can lean on each other and support each other. So it's not an individual process. It's a collective experience.
mm.
Final thoughts, guys. We've got 3 minutes.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
think
guess my oh, sorry, Welshie.
no.
I was just going to say, I think what's really sitting with me, what's resonating for me right now is that idea, David, of being there's that little flame inside you that is burning for something. And it would be such a tragedy to put the flame out or to not see it and not nurture it. Now, that doesn't always mean that now is the right time, and that doesn't always mean that there's one way of helping to fan that flame. But whatever it is that floats your boat and whatever it is you feel passionate about, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to all of the rest of us in the society and in this community with you to pursue it in whatever way feels right for you, whatever that looks and feels like for you. Is don't squash it, don't put it out, don't extinguish it. Just do what you can do to protect and grow your own flame.
Hmm.
Love that. Love that. I think that the word that comes up for me is fragility of that flame. Um, when you're first starting out and well, for a lot of people, they don't even know what their flame is, what that flame even represents in their lives. They feel this need, this yearning, but for you to have identified it, I think that's really special in itself, just to say. But in the very beginning, it's very fragile, right? As David said, and Debbie, um, you need to protect it. You need to really nurture it. But I agree that once you do kind of support it and you validate it, what it's saying, and you actually listen to it, what is it actually telling me that I deserve to do and that I really wanted to do? And this will give me fulfillment, right? It's once it gains a bit of momentum, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. Once it starts rolling, it's amazing how the universe conspires to support that continuous momentum. And you'll find that they seem like coincidences, but it's all supporting you to continue on that journey. Yeah.
Mm. Some great thoughts, guys. It's been a pleasure as always, and I hope for our listeners, this has been helpful for you, especially if you're thinking about how do I, you know, gain confidence in taking on new challenges. See you
Mhm.
next time.
Excellent. Bye.
Bye.